This is Julian, and I'm here in Barcelona, and this week's book is Steal Like an Artist, 10 Things Nobody Told You About Being Creative by Kleon. And a couple things before we crack into these 10 points is that, first of all, this isn't just for quote-unquote artists. Okay, if you're hearing this, you're like, well, I'm not a writer, I'm not a painter, I'm not a designer, I'm not a musician, I'm not an actor. Well, guess what? Okay, it's not just for that. This is for anyone who's trying to inject any kind of creativity into their lives or their work. And as Seth Godin says, guess what? You need to be an artist, especially in today's society. And we all are deep down inside. However, oftentimes it's a little bit more buried inside of certain people. Okay, and the other thing too I really like about this book is just how to the point it really is and how practical it is. You know, it's tough to get an answer when it comes to creativity to, well, where do you get your ideas? Oftentimes it's, I don't know. It just comes to me. And this one really gives you the honest truth. So as always, enjoy. So the first out of the 10 points here is the title of the book, Steal Like an Artist. Okay, and the idea here is that nothing is original. What he says is what a good artist understands is that nothing comes from nowhere. All creative work builds on what came before. Nothing is completely original. Okay, and when you hear this, you're probably thinking of, well, there's this one song that's really original, this piece of art that's really original, this video that I'm watching on YouTube, which is very original. But if you think it's original, oftentimes it's because you don't know the references or the original sources involved. Okay, and we're going to build on this. But the first thing to understand here is that if we're free from the burden of trying to be completely original, and this is, I mean, a lot of us, you hear, hey, be creative. You're like, man, what can I really do? I'm not that original. How can I come up with something completely original? Give up. Okay, free yourself of that burden, and once you do, you can stop trying to make something out of nothing, and you can embrace influence instead of running away from it. Okay, and this is key. Every new idea is a mashup or a remix of one or more previous ideas. And the example he uses, let's just say, genetics. Okay, you have a father, you have a mother, and they have different genetics, but what are you? Are you completely original? Not really. You're a mashup, let's just say, of the two. Okay, and this applies to genetics, but also applies to ideas, inspiration. Guess what? You're a mashup of all of your influences. And what he says here is that you can control this. Okay, you don't get to pick your family, but you can pick your teachers, you can pick your friends, you can pick the music you listen to, you can pick the books you read, you can pick the movies you see, and you're a mashup of that. Okay, you probably heard the saying, by Jim Rohn, you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. This applies to everything. Okay, and on a personal note here, this is something I realized pretty early on. Okay, I was like, man, you know, you're being influenced by everything. If you can control the influences, you can control your creativity, you can control your personality, because that's really a lot of your personality. You're just a fucking human sponge, let's just say. And you can have somewhat of control over the direction, let's just say, of who you're becoming and of your life. Okay, you're the sum of your influences, and again, this is everything. Films, new films, music, books, paintings, photographs, poems, dreams, random conversations, architecture, bridges, street signs, trees, clouds, bodies of water, light and shadows. Okay, and you need to decide. So if, for example, you know, if you take me, when I started out teaching dating advice for men, I wanted to create a brand that was somewhat controversial, as I'm sure you know. Okay, and what did I do? I knew that. That was the general direction I kind of resonated with at the time. And I started managing my influences to reinforce this. So what does that mean? Even on a music level, like I controlled everything. On a music level, I would listen to things like Eminem, Mickey Avalon, like anything that's kind of along those lines there, anything that's provocative. In terms of comedy, it was the same thing. Like, you know, one of my favorite comedians is Jim Jeffries, who definitely pushes the fucking envelope. I would go on Twitter, I'd read all these tweets that, you know, were like controversial jokes, let's just say, people who kind of push the envelope. In terms of movies, I would scan for little bits of charisma, little bits of personality, and I would just really, you know, narrow my focus down to these pieces there, and after a while, they would start becoming who I am. Okay, so just took little bits from everywhere, and that became my brand, that became my online persona. That's what I did. In terms of improving my life, it's the same thing. I'm like, you know, if I want to, you know, better myself as a person, better my circumstances, I better surround myself with people who are doing the same. I better, you know, select the books I read to help me move in this direction. Okay, if you're working on bettering yourself, keep those influences pushing you or moving you in that direction. Don't just read anything, okay? Don't just watch anything. Don't just eat anything. It's like, well, I kind of want to snap out of groupthink, consumer culture, social conditioning, but I'm going to watch all the movies that reinforce these beliefs. I'm going to watch all the ads that reinforce these beliefs. Don't. Select only things to steal from that speak directly to your soul. If you do this, your work and theft will be authentic, okay? And what he writes down here too is, the artist is a collector, not a hoarder, and there's a difference. As an artist, you only collect things you love, things that speak to you, okay? You're very selective. You're collecting good ideas, and the more good ideas you collect, the more you can choose from to be influenced by, okay? And building on this too, the attitude you should have is you have to be curious about the world you live in, look things up, chase down every reference, go deeper than anyone else. That's how you'll get ahead, okay? For example, find writers, artists, musicians, role models you really love, study everything there is to know about that person, and then go deeper. Who is that person influenced by? Study them. Always be reading. Okay, here's a few tips. Always be reading. It's not the book you start with, it's the book that it leads you to. Carry a notebook and pen with you everywhere you go. Okay, this is more on the practical side. I do this all the time. I mainly do it with my phone though. It's like, oh, if I read something interesting, I'll write it down. If I see something interesting, I'll write it down because you fucking forget. Okay, so get in the habit of writing it down. Get used to pulling it out, jotting down your thoughts, observations. I'll do that too because you can't control when those creative ideas pop in your head. I could be on the train. I'm like, oh, fuck, that was really good. Write it down. Okay, oftentimes if I'm in a conversation, so you've ever worked with me, it's pretty often I'm talking and then I'm like, I write down something I just said. I'm like, whoa, that was really good. Write it down. Copy your favorite passages out of books, record conversations, just doodle when you're on the phone, okay? Just always have a notebook. And the other thing building on this is keep what he calls a swipe file, okay? And this is a file that keeps track of stuff you swiped from others, okay? You see something, quote unquote, worth stealing, put it in that file, and whenever you need a little inspiration, open that file and start going through it, okay? And this is something that I do as well, okay? I, for example, have a file here. I use the app. It's called Scrivener, and I start just putting all my notes in there, okay? If I read a book, like this book here, I took down notes, I'm putting my notes in there, okay? And then after a while, guess what? You have this huge file of all these notes. You took all these ideas that resonated with you, and I'll just reread it every once in a while, okay? And guess what? I'll just let it subtly influence me and spark my creativity. The next point is don't wait to know who you are before you get started, okay? And this is big. It's like, well, before I launch myself in my creative journey or start making art, be it, again, in terms of painting, music, or even your job or your life, I kind of need to find, who I am in my style, okay? And what's key here to understand is it's in the act of making things and doing our work that we figure out who we are. You're not really going to figure it out sitting down, okay? I kind of figured out, for example, that controversial personality by going out, expressing, who I was, kind of looking back in my life, what I resonated with in terms of, say, dark humor, so on and so forth, and then I had a general idea, and I would slowly build on that. I didn't just sit down and be like, who am I? Okay, because you'll be sitting around years from now, okay? And it might be scary to start, and what he says here is that's natural. You may feel like a phony. It's like, well, who am I to just do this? I'm a nobody. I don't have my style. I just feel like I'm winging it. I don't really have an idea what I'm doing. And what he says is, guess what? None of us do. Okay, we're all just fucking winging it. Embrace that and stop placing other people on such a high pedestal. Okay, ask anybody doing truly creative work, and they'll tell you the truth. They don't know where the good stuff comes from. They just show up and do their thing every day. Okay, and get used to putting bad art out there too, because if you're not willing to do that, where do you think the good art comes from? You put out bad art, and every once in a while you get good art, okay? Just put stuff out there. Building on this too, what he says is nobody is born with a style or a voice, okay? We don't come out of the womb knowing who we are. In the beginning, we learn by pretending to be our heroes. We learn by copying, okay? And this kind of builds on the steal like an artist, which can sound kind of controversial. But this is how we learn. You copy your parents, you copy all your influences, you copy your friends, and through doing that, you kind of discover who you are, okay? And what he says is we're talking about practice here, not plagiarism, okay? Plagiarism is trying to pass someone else's work off as your own. Don't do that, okay? Copying is about reverse engineering. It's like a mechanic, let's just say, taking a car apart to see how it works, okay? We learn to write by copying down the alphabet. We don't just learn to write from nothing. Musicians learn to play by practicing scales. Painters learn to paint by reproducing masterpieces, okay? And don't just steal the style, okay? Steal the thinking behind the style. That's the key. It's by practicing. You're not like, well, this is me now. You just kind of get a glimpse into how that composer, let's just say, viewed the world, viewed his music, where he was coming from mentally, okay? You don't want to look like your heroes. You want to see like your heroes, okay? The reason to copy your heroes and their style is that you get a glimpse into their minds. That's what you really want, to internalize their way of looking at the world, okay? And of course, at some point, you'll have to move on from imitating your heroes to emulating them. Imitation is about copying, which is necessary. Emulating is when imitation goes one step further, breaking through into your own thing. Copy your heroes, examine where you fall short, okay? And that there's what makes you different, okay? That's what you should amplify and transform into your own work, okay? And in the end, too, merely imitating your heroes is not flattering them. Transforming their work into something of your own is how you flatter them, adding something to the world that only you can add, okay? So again, steal like an artist sounds controversial, but understanding it this way, I mean, to be honest, this is the raw fucking truth, okay? It's like, start stealing, copying, add your own style to it. This is what I did, is another example with public speaking. When I first started doing seminars, putting videos out there, a huge comment I got all the time is, you're a mini version of Owen, okay, who I work with. And the reason being is I was around him all the time. I saw him speaking, and then I started speaking before him on stage. And what did I do? Guess what? I just started fucking copying. I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm like, well, what does he do? Let's copy him, get a feel for it. Then I started, again, widening my focus and copying other people. I'd look up other seminars online, different speakers I'd see in person. As I mentioned before, a lot of comedians, and I started copying them. Okay, I remember there's more than a few seminars where before I went up on stage, I'd be like watching stand-up comedy on my fucking computer. Okay, I'd be watching Jim Jeffries, as I mentioned, Dane Cook, Russell Brand, Whitney Cummings, tons, okay? And I'd just be watching that, and then I'd kind of take a little bit, throw it up in my seminar. And then after a while, what happened, suddenly, I kind of saw like, did I resonate with this, a little less with that? I added a little twist to this. Where did that twist come from? I don't know, just came out of nowhere, and that was me. That's how I did it. It wasn't sitting at home, it was by doing, and then I kind of harnessed onto that and came up with something that's unique. Okay, now, in a way, it's not really 100% unique, because it's the sum of all these influences, but the unique thing here is the amount of ingredients. That's it. The ingredients are there. You take them. What cocktail are you going to make? That there is your uniqueness. Okay. Step 3, write the book you want to read. Okay. He links this to writing, being a writer himself. And what he says is the best advice is not to write what you know, it's to write what you like. Okay. Draw the art you want to see, start the business you want to run, play the music you want to hear, write the books you want to read, build the products you want to use, do the work you want to see done. Think about your favorite work or your creative heroes. And some questions to ask yourself, in order to be inspired would be, for example, what did they miss? What didn't they make? What could have been made better? If they were still alive, what would they be making today? If all of your favorite makers got together and collaborated, what would they make with you leading the crew? Okay, that's the key. Instead of just doing the same thing over and over again, ask yourself these questions and go from there. Okay, number 4, use your hands. And what he says is you need to find a way to bring your body into your work. Okay, what he writes down is, while I love my computer, I think computers have robbed us of the feeling that we're actually making things. Instead, we're just typing keys and clicking mouse buttons. It wasn't until I started bringing analog tools back into my process that making things became fun again and my work started to improve. The process engaged most of my senses, and it didn't feel like work anymore, it felt like play. The computer, what he writes down, is a really good editing publishing tool, for your ideas, but it's not really good for generating ideas. Okay, there's too many opportunities to hit the delete key, and the computer brings out the uptight perfectionist in us. If you ever try writing on the computer, everything has to be perfect, and then you go back and you edit that, and it has to be perfect and all like square and just final. On a pen and paper, guess what? Things just somehow flow. You just kind of go with the flow, knowing that you'll probably copy it on your computer later and make it perfect then. Okay, there's a quote here with the computer: things are on an inevitable path to being finished, whereas in my sketchbook, the possibilities are endless. Okay, and ideally here, if you have the space, what he recommends is setting up 2 workstations, 1 analog, 1 digital. Number 5, side projects and hobbies are important. Okay, and this is key. When you're just focused on, I gotta do this, this is where I wanna make my money, this is what counts, there's a lot of pressure, and that pressure can hinder your creativity. Okay, you need something on the side where you can kind of relax, let your mind kind of drift off, and then slowly start expressing creativity there. Okay, and ideally you can then combine the 2. So what did I do, for example? Okay, I had my personality that I was building, my public speaking that I was building, but at the same time, in terms of success with women, I'd be going out a lot and interacting with a lot of people. Now, during the interacting time, guess what? I wasn't necessarily paid for everything I said. I was there and I was expressing my personality. That was the me fun time on the side. And because of that, less pressure. And then I would say things, I would come up with jokes. I'd be like, oh man, that's an interesting side of my personality. And then I would take that and link it to public speaking, making videos, my public image, my brand, so on and so forth. Okay, but you need that hobby on the side. What he says is creative people need time to also just sit around and do nothing. Okay, take time to mess around, get lost, wander. You never know what's going to lead you. He gets some of his best ideas when he's bored. Okay, and I'm sure you've experienced the same. A lot of people get ideas in the shower. It's when that pressure is gone and you just let your mind drift off that something comes out. Okay, he loves ironing his shirts. It's so boring, I almost always get good ideas. If you're out of ideas, wash the dishes, take a really long walk. Okay, just try to loosen your mind. Number 6, the secret: do good work and share it with people. And this comes to becoming known or building a brand or becoming successful or ideally making a living off your work. And the first point he makes here is enjoy your obscurity while it lasts. Use it. Okay, everyone's in a rush to being famous, being known for their work, that they kind of skip this step here. Okay, and I mean, this is pretty key. When you're unknown, there's no pressure. There isn't, and that's where you can be usually the most creative. You can do what you want, you can experiment, there are no real consequences. You can do things just for fun. Okay, when you're unknown, there's nothing to distract you from getting better, there's no public image to manage. This is something that stifles a lot of people. It's, hey, you become known for this, and suddenly you're too scared to take risks or try anything too new because it'll ruin that image, and then you just get stuck there. Okay, there's no huge paycheck on the line. Okay, that like, oh my god, I gotta make the money now. There's no stockholders, so on and so forth, and you'll never get that freedom back again once people start paying attention to you. Okay, and especially not once they start paying you money. So take advantage for now. Okay, don't view it as, oh, this sucks so bad. Enjoy the freedom. And from there, what he says is, if there was a secret formula to becoming known, I would give it to you, but there's only one not so secret formula that I know: do good work and share it with people. It's as simple as that. Okay, figure out how to make a website, some basic things, figure out how to blog, figure out Twitter and social media, find people on the internet, and start sharing good work. Okay, people love it when you give your secrets away. Share your best work, don't hold that back. And a plus side too with the internet is that it keeps you on your toes. Once you start sharing, or you start a blog, let's just say, or putting videos out on YouTube, it kind of holds you accountable to posting something new. And what he says is having a container can inspire us to fill it. Number 7, geography is no longer our master. What he says is when he was a kid, all he wanted to do was get someplace where something was happening. The same for me, actually. I was growing up in Switzerland, and the way I viewed it is like, man, there's no opportunity here. I need to move to Los Angeles. That's where everything's happening. Okay, and in the past, I mean, it really worked that way. It's like, go to Los Angeles, get discovered, become somebody. But there's been a huge shift here with the internet. Okay, You don't have to live anywhere other than the place you are right now to start connecting with the world you want to be in. You can go on Twitter, you can network with all these people. You can share your work with all these people. You can go on YouTube, share it with the world. You don't have to be there in person, okay? However, building on this, what he does say is that where you live still has a huge impact on the work you do, not in terms of connections, but in terms of your creative process, okay? And what he recommends is leave home on a micro level and a macro level, okay? Your brain gets too comfortable in your everyday surroundings, so ideally leave the house a bit, don't just stay cooped up all the time. Or on a more macro level, travel, okay? Go somewhere new. You need to make it uncomfortable, spend some time in another land among people that do things differently than you. Travel makes the world look new, and when it looks new, of course, your brain works harder, and it doesn't necessarily mean a foreign culture across the sea or in another country, okay? Just start putting yourself in these new environments that turns your mind on instead of just going through the mundane day-to-day life, okay? And I mean, this is something that's obviously tremendously affected me. I mean, I've traveled around a lot, and especially in the past, 4 to 6 years, it's just like nonstop, okay? My brain is constantly turned on, okay? Now, obviously, there's the flip side where you have to learn to turn it off, otherwise it's on all the time. But if you're kind of just stuck in this one environment, no wonder, your creativity's probably taken a hit, okay? And in terms of where you live, ideally too, find a place that feeds you creatively, socially, spiritually, and literally. Number 8, be nice. The world is a small town. If you talk about someone on the internet, they will find out, okay? And the best way to vanquish your enemies on the internet is to ignore them. The best way to make friends on the internet, say nice things about them, okay? And the trap here that we fall into, especially online, is picking fights and trying to correct things, just jumping and going in these little back and forth dialogues that don't help your work at all. And what he says is stop doing that and start making something, okay? If you're frustrated, channel that into your work and get comfortable with being misunderstood, disparaged, or ignored, okay? Not everybody will get it. People will misinterpret what you do, call you names, won't see the years of toil and sweat that went into it, and that's fine, okay? Your job is not to convince everyone of that. Your job is to keep making things and putting them out, okay? And another thing he recommends is to keep a praise file for those days where, you really want to quit or you wonder why the heck you even bother with this, okay? And I actually do this. I get emails a lot from, clients like, hey, you changed my life, and I keep those. And that's really what keeps me going, on those days where I'm just like, I just can't, or I'm drained. I'll read them, okay? You need reminders of this. And what he says too is that use it sparingly. Don't just get lost in past glory, okay? Don't go too far in that direction there. Number 9, be boring. It's the only way to get work done. And there's an amazing quote here from Gustave Flaubert. What he says is, be regular and orderly in your life so that you may be violent and original in your work, okay? And this is something, that I do a lot. Like if you hang out with me behind the scenes, I'm, still pretty introverted and quiet, okay? Unless I have to exert something, I'll usually try to, conserve it, okay? It's like expansion, contraction. My life's pretty boring. Even what I talk about, like small talk, I'm just like, just small talk to loosen my mind so that when it comes time to be extremely creative, guess what? I have that energy. It takes a lot of energy to be creative, which you don't have if you waste it on other stuff. Okay, what he recommends here is learn about money as soon as you can. Stay out of debt, which is extremely mentally exhausting. And back in the day, I was in debt for almost 2 years, and I remember I was just like constantly stressed, like the money, and obviously that'll hinder your creativity. And what he says here is a lot of it is just saying no to consumer culture. For example, say no to takeout, $4 lattes and that shiny new computer when the old one works fine. Keep your day job, okay? Even if you're lucky enough to make a living off what, of doing what you truly love, it will probably take you a while to get to that point. Until then, you need a day job. Establishing and keeping a routine can be even more important than having a lot of time, and this is key. Obviously, as I mentioned before, go out, get a little uncomfortable, but you can't always be uncomfortable or you'll burn out, okay? Get some kind of routine. I have a routine here when I travel. It's, kind of the bare minimum, but when I wake up, there's always the same different steps that I take. In different circumstances, like before a seminar, I'll try to do certain things. When I travel, I'll try to do certain things. This is what keeps me grounded, and I can kind of turn off my mind a bit, contract before expanding, okay? You have to stay in the groove, okay? Do something, start making, let's just say, every single day. Don't take breaks, okay? When you get out of it, you start to dread the work because you know it's going to suck for a while. Okay, do this every single day no matter what. When it comes to being creative, there are no holidays, no sick days. It's don't fucking stop, okay? And nobody's saying it's going to be fun. Another one is get yourself a calendar, plan work, give yourself concrete goals, keep yourself on track. And the last one in this point here is marry well. And that doesn't just mean with your life partner, but also with who you do business, who you befriend, and who you choose to be around, okay? It can't be draining. It can't be all this stress-inducing relationships where pent-up anger and resentment, or that will obviously bring you down. And an interesting point he makes here too is that it takes a real champion of a person to be married to someone who's obsessed with creative pursuit, okay? Number 10, and this is the last one, creativity is subtraction. And what does that mean? Choose what to leave out so you can concentrate on what's really important to you, okay? Especially in an age of information abundance and overload, okay? Nothing is more paralyzing than the idea of limitless possibilities. The idea that you can do anything is absolutely terrifying, okay? There's too many choices. You're like, I don't know, okay? And the key here is learn what to subtract. When it comes to creative work, limitations means freedom, okay? Place some constraints on yourself. Make things with the time, space, and materials you have right now versus making excuses for not working. An example here I remember is this video I put out, a few years ago. It was a manifesto in terms of success with women. And I kept putting it off. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to wait till it's perfect. I'm going to wait till I'm not tired. I'm going to wait till I have more time and I can really edit it. Maybe till I have this new camera. And it was all these excuses. And after a while, I'm like, you know what, fuck it. Do the best you can with what you have right now, or you're never going to fucking make it, okay? There's a quote from Jack White here, which is telling yourself you have all the time in the world, all the money in the world, all the colors in the palette, anything you want, that just kills creativity, okay? Creativity comes with constraints, and it's often what an artist chooses to leave out that makes the art interesting, what isn't shown versus what is, okay? So that's the final point here. As I mentioned in the introduction, it's just very to the point, practical, and just bang on when it comes to creativity. Like every single point here I could identify with. If this is something you're struggling with or something you want to start cultivating, read the book, highly recommend it. And as always, check the comments here below for next week's book. Until next time.